Part 83. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 821. Chapter 821 Generous Rewards. She held Grandma Chang's arm and stood under the eaves. Seeing the servants and maids playing around, she couldn't help but laugh and said, "Look, it's better to have more children at home, it's more lively." Mother Chang smiled and replied, "What the old lady said is that when young Master Xing and young Master Yuan grow up in the future, the family will be even more lively." At this time, Jiyan brought Shui Ling and Shui Yun over from the princess's mansion. Seeing her grandma standing in front of the house, she jumped up and ran forward, boasting, "Oh, whose old lady is this? She is so beautiful. Isn't it possible? Is it the Queen Mother from heaven who has descended to earth?" Mrs. Li blushed at her granddaughter's annoyance. She raised her hand to hold the hairpin and said angrily, "What a girl you are, but you are still surprised. I'm not used to wearing this dress, but Grandma Chang made me wear it this way. She also styled my hair in a bun." Grandma Chang was an old lady with a round face and a very happy smile. She said at this moment, the old slave saw that there were so many new clothes in the old lady's wardrobe, and the silks and satins were all faded if I didn't wear them anymore. I persuaded the old lady to dress up like this one time. "Yes, that's how it should be." Jiyan hugged her grandma's arm and said with a smile, "From now on, Grandma will follow this and dress up my grandma beautifully every day." After saying that, she told Shui Yun, "Watch and reward." Shui Yun immediately took a purse from his sleeve and handed it to Granny Chang. Mammy Chang quickly took it with a smile and saluted respectfully. The whole family is most in need of money, and the one who spends the most generously is the princess. How long has she been with the old lady? She has already been rewarded 3 times. This is also the reason why she serves the old lady with all her heart. It's not that she is greedy for money, but her efforts and intentions are all seen by the masters. Mrs. Li helped her granddaughter pull up her clothes and was very satisfied with her granddaughter's dress today. A honey-colored satin coat with wide sleeves, the placket and cuffs are inlaid with white fox fur, which makes the granddaughter's face look even more rosy. With the small gold crown on the head and the small gold pendants on the ears, it looks so noble, without the ostentatious and vulgar feeling of others wearing gold. My lucky girl is also beautiful today. After dinner, she will accompany her grandma for a walk in the village. I heard that your master's twins are infected with the cold and your uncle Daong is not here. Let's go and have a look." Mrs. Li asked, "Pick grapes for the 2 children. The one with the most water will be eaten to cool down when you have a fever." "Okay, Grandma." Jiyan responded immediately and told Shui Ling, "You will pick grapes later, and remember to add half a basket of tangerines. Eat oranges when the wind is cold, they will heal faster." Shui Ling was also quick and turned around and went back to the princess mansion. Soon, after dinner, Tao Hongying went to the second village. "When I opened a pickle shop 2 years ago, I built a small pickle workshop there. The weather has been cold recently, and everyone likes to drink hot porridge, and pickles are also in high demand. The shop's business is good and it needs to replenish goods from time to time. Especially spicy cabbage, which has the best taste if it is pickled and fermented 3 to 5 days in advance. Today, Tao Hongying will take 5 or 6 women from the pickle workshop to pickle more orange." Mrs. Li and Jiyan went to Huanyang's place. Jiyan not only brought fruits, but also picked up some knickknacks from childhood and carried them over. The twins were a little sick, but they were playing with good news and eating oranges and grapes, and they immediately became energetic. Huanyang's eyes were blue and black. Seeing this, she felt relieved and tried her best to persuade the old lady to have lunch with Jiyan. Old Mrs. Li was afraid that she would be tired, so not only did she not agree, but she also asked Aunt Chang to stay and help look after the twins, and urged Huanyang to take a nap. Jiyan supported her grandma, chatting and laughing. As soon as she arrived at the door of her house, a group of people came on the road in the distance. Both the grandfather and grandson were very excited, thinking that the Northern Expeditionary Army had returned. As a result, when the people and horses came closer, the two of them discovered that it was their own carriage. As soon as the car door opened, 7 or 8 boys jumped out. Old Mrs. Lee couldn't help but laugh and asked the eldest grandson who was leading the team, "Grn, are you back from the city?" Grn quickly led everyone forward and saluted the old lady together. Grn smiled and said, "Grandma, we have been playing together since the poetry meeting yesterday, and then we stayed at the Earl's mansion. Okay, you guys don't need to study lately, you might as well play more." Old Mrs. Lee quickly greeted everyone, "Let's go inside, it's cold outside." Brother Cat ran to his sister and offered her treasure eagerly, "Sister, we have 2 shops for you, and they are adjacent to each other. You can do the fresh food business." I was confused when I heard the good news. After all, the person who came back yesterday only said that my brothers would stay in the city for 1 night, and did not say anything about the specific details of the poetry meeting. When the uncle and the second uncle came back, it was extremely dark. After eating, they went to rest. Where did these 2 shops come from? Is it the lucky draw of the poetry club? Then the bet is too big. Brother Lee pushed his younger brother and said angrily, "Let's talk about it after we enter the house. Don't let my sister freeze." Everyone cheered and entered the house, making the cold main room immediately lively. Shui Ling and Shui Yun were busy serving tea and snacks until everyone felt warm in their bellies. Ji Yankai asked, "Was the poem meeting fun yesterday?" Brother Mao and Hymanchiaja immediately became excited, and they almost started talking over each other. Hearing Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei jumping up and down again, Mrs. Li and Ji Yan were very angry. After hearing that Gu Li fought back with all his might and won over both the Wang family and the Lu family's shops, the two of them were surprised and overjoyed. Mrs. Li laughed and clapped her hands, "You deserve it. Our family is not coveting those 2 shops, but we should let them have a memory. Last time, when we were in Luoan, we didn't kill them all. They didn't know how to restrain themselves. Now they won't regret it." "That's right, Grandma." Brother Cat, a grandson, was acting coquettishly next to the old lady. "Grandma, we are so awesome, shouldn't we be rewarded?" Orange Mrs. Lee knocked on her grandson's forehead and said with a smile, "Even if you don't tell me, Grandma won't lose you. Tell me, what do you want?" "Haha, we want to eat hot pot and drink wine." Brother Cat was very proud. "We were outside yesterday and didn't dare to let go and play. Today we are home and we want to have a good drink." Mrs. Lee didn't know whether to laugh or cry. No one in the family likes wine, so who are you following, a little drunkard? After saying that, she looked at her granddaughter. After all, vegetables and other vegetables needed to eat hot pot had to be picked from her granddaughter's greenhouse. Of course we can't be stingy about the good news. We immediately asked our brothers to go to the greenhouse and pick whatever they wanted. Brother Cat cheered, led Ji Min and Jiu Ji, grabbed Guo Wenhao, and ran to the princess's mansion. Gilai saw that his masters had something to say, so he left and returned to school. Ji Yan stopped him and said, "In 2 days, the shops of the Lu family and the Wang family will be handed over. Go and have a look. If it is suitable to open a fresh food shop, you should start setting up a fresh food shop as soon as possible. At that time, I will give you 10% of the year's profit as your reward. What do you think?" End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 822. Chapter 822. Good intentions are rewarded. Gilai was surprised. He didn't expect Ji Yan to be so generous. Others don't know, but he knows it very well. If a fresh food shop opens and sells only vegetables and fruits, among other things, it can easily earn several thousand taels a month. 10% profit sounds small, but you can definitely get hundreds of taels of silver every month. And this is a long-term benefit. As long as the shop is open, the income will not stop. This is much better than a reward. He took a deep look at Jiyan, then lowered his head and bowed in response. Thank you, princess, for the reward. Jiyan waved his hand and said, you deserve this. Go back and talk to Mr. Zhang, and remember to come back for hot pot. Yes, Princess Gu Li took a few steps back, then turned and walked out. Old Mrs. Li couldn't help but sigh, this kid is really good. Before, I only saw him acting steadily and taking care of the shop diligently. I didn't expect him to be so good at studying. If I had known, I would have persuaded Mr. Zhang to cancel his slave status and send him to the scientific examination, maybe he would be a scholar now. Jiaran didn't want Grandma to say more, so he changed his subject and said, Grandma, Brother Lu is not feeling well, he needs to stay in the village for a while and ask Divine Dr. Zhang to take care of him. He has brought a lot of elite soldiers to protect him. We can't live in our house. Grandma, how can we arrange it? Old Mrs. Li quickly looked at Luzon, looking him up and down with concern. Luzon wore a brown hidden flower robe with wide sleeves today, which made his face look a bit dark indeed. Mrs. Li was distressed and kept nagging, you kid, why are you so polite? If you are not in good health, you should come here as soon as possible and ask Dr. Zhang to take a look. You are in Zindu and your family members are not around, so you should pay more attention to everything. If you fall ill, your parents will be worried and distressed when they hear about it. After saying that, she would ask someone to ask for Dr. Zhang. Jiyan has learned medical skills for so long, and of course he can see that Luzon is not sick. Thinking about the fact that the 50 elite soldiers outside the courtyard would all live together, she vaguely guessed Luzon's good intentions. So, she quickly stopped her grandma and said, Grandma, Brother Lu is not seriously ill, and he will not be ill for a while. After lunch, I'll ask my eldest brother to accompany Brother Lu for a walk. It's time to eat. As for the place to live, Brother Lu can live in the west wing of my adoptive father's yard, and the soldiers can live in our ward. Old Mrs. Li nodded, that's good. There are still 5 vacant rooms in the dormitory, so we can make arrangements for them. Jiyan then went out and called the maids and boys to clean the room and arrange bedding. The kitchen has also begun to make bone soup. When the sun was right overhead, the Cat brothers came back laughing and carrying the basket. There are all kinds of vegetables in the basket, and of course I also picked a lot of fruits. Tao Hongying heard the news in number 2 village and rushed back. She personally made some delicious side dishes. The old lady was afraid that the boys would be restrained, so she placed the hot pot in the wing of Yes house. Children can have fun without adults around. Even if you are drunk, you can still take a bath in the hot spring pool in the west wing. Although the Marquis said when he went on the expedition, the yard can be used by the Li family as he pleases. But Jiyan still asked Dongmei to lock up the hot spring pools in the main room and the east side room, and clean them regularly, so that when the adoptive father comes back, he can live comfortably and clean at any time. If Luzon hadn't come to stay this time, because he was of high status and his father had a relationship with the Marquis, Jiyan would not have made such an arrangement. Originally, Luzon's treatment was just an excuse, but in the afternoon he went to see Dr. Zhang, and Dr. Zhang actually diagnosed some deeply hidden old diseases. It turned out that he was naughty when he was a child and had sun exposure in the winter. Although he was cured at that time and became strong after so many years, he still suffered from cold syndrome. If you don't take good care of it thoroughly, it will be easy for your heirs to have difficulty in the future. This shocked Luzon. You must know that he is the only legitimate son of the Lu family, and it is his duty to spread the branches and descendants. Fortunately, I came to Li's house to help this time and found out. I really felt that my kindness was well rewarded. At this point, Luzon settled down, drinking decoction and taking medicinal baths every day. Of course Jiasu will accompany Lu Zong and just go back to the city to stay for one night occasionally. Due to the arrival of Lu Zong, 50 elite soldiers from the Lu family took 3 shifts to guard the new village and the Li family. This makes the Li family and the people in the village feel a lot more at ease. 4 or 5 days passed in a flash, and Jiaran saw that Wang Sheng and Lu Kui had not yet delivered the deed of the shop, and were about to go to the city to ask for it. As a result, people from the second village came to report. "Young master, some people have come down from the archway and want to see you and the eldest master or uncle." Jiaran guessed how much he could and asked, "Did they notify their names?" "Say it, young master." They said their surnames were Lu and Wang. They shouted for permission, but raised their chins high. "It doesn't look like a good bird." Su, the veteran who reported the news, was an aggressive person and added another sentence casually. "Young master, do you want to beat them out?" Jiaran waved his hand, said something to grandma, and was about to go. Not worried about the good news, he wrapped himself in a big red and gold cloak and followed him. Jiasu and Lu Zong naturally wanted to go with them after hearing the news. Brother Li and Brother Cat were even more unafraid of trouble and ran ahead. The elite soldiers of the Lu family were divided into 20 people and closely guarded the rear. So a huge group of people arrived at the archway in less than a quarter of an hour. The veterans of the second village didn't know why the Lu and Wang families came to visit, but every time so many people came to Sujintan, it was bad. They already had experience, so everyone gave up their work and gathered around the people who took advantage of them, vaguely seeming to surround the Lu and Wang families. Lu Kui and Wang Sheng were beaten until their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen, and they looked as miserable as pig heads. At this moment, seeing the veterans being like this, they did not dare to speak. Shopkeeper Lu and Wang Yuanwei had dark faces and wanted to kill their 2 sons and eat their flesh. Originally, they heard that their son bet his own shop at the poetry club, and even lost the bet. They were very angry, but they didn't take it seriously. After all, the shop is no longer in the name of the 2 children. Even if they refuse to cash in, no one dares to rob it. As a result, Mr. Mo May and several other old gentlemen came to the door in person yesterday and asked them to honor their bet and give the shop to the Li family as soon as possible. They said good things, complained and begged for mercy, but no matter how hard the old gentlemen asked, they didn't agree. Finally, the old gentleman left. They all breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that the matter was over. As a result, in the afternoon, many people who had done business with them suddenly stopped cooperation. Until this morning, the shop was deserted, and there were still many people gathering in front of the door and pointing. They realized the seriousness of the matter. Children cannot deny the trouble they cause. The 2 families got together, discussed it carefully, and finally decided on a bitter plan. Then he beat the 2 boys severely and planned to send them to Li's house to plead for mercy. Presumably the Li family is soft-hearted and will not hold on to this matter. After all, everyone has children in their family, but it's just a joke. How can a casual bet be taken seriously? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 823. Chapter 823. There is no love to talk about. But they had a good plan, but when they reached the intersection, they were stopped. No matter how hard they braved the cold wind, the veterans with missing arms and legs refused to let them in. They just shouted a few words, and countless people gathered over carrying sticks and hatchets. When Jiaran, Jiyan, and others came from Zincan, the Lu family and Wang family were surrounded like chickens with shrinking necks, and their faces were whiter than snow in fear. It really makes everyone feel relieved after watching it. Behind every naughty child, there is a naughty parent. Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei are certainly hateful, but parents and elders who can teach them are definitely not good people. Jiaran was not busy trying to reason with the two families. Instead, he looked at the road behind him. The family's carriage had just arrived. Shui Ling jumped out of the car and said with a smile, "Miss, sit in the car and watch. It's too cold outside." Without waiting for Ji Yin to refuse, Jiaran had spoken. Fu Niu went up, and brother Lu and Xia also avoided the wind. In the Broken Gold Beach area, we don't have to worry about our family suffering a loss. Lu Zong and Jia Su didn't insist. They helped Ji Yin get into the carriage with their own hands, and then followed. The charcoal pot was lit in the carriage, and it was burning warmly. There were even hot tea, melon seeds, and peanuts and other snacks on the small table. Ji Yin is so funny to watch. Shui Ling really knows the essential routine of eating melon. Lu Zong and Jia Su also laughed, each grabbed a handful of melon seeds, and then went to the window. Jiaran then brought his two younger brothers forward and motioned for everyone in the second village to disperse. The Lu family and the Wang family breathed a sigh of relief and quickly saluted. Lu Kuei's father has been a businessman for many years. He kept the lowest possible attitude and said with a flattering face, "The common people have paid tribute to young Master Li, the sixth young master, and the seventh young master. It is really presumptuous to come and disturb them today. I still hope Hai Han." Wang Sheng's father was Wang Yuanzhong, a small official who worked in the government office. He thought he had two respects, but he just handed over his hand and said nothing. Jiaran was impatient to bother with them any longer, so he waved his hand and asked straight to the point, "Our Li family has no friendship with your family, so there is no need to be polite. Tell me, what are you doing here today?" Shopkeeper Lu and Wang Yuanzhong looked at each other, both a little unhappy. The mouth is hairless and the work is not done well. This boy from the Li family doesn't understand etiquette at all. How can he block people at the intersection and speak directly? Could it be that the Li family can't bear to part with a bowl of tea? But the situation is stronger than the people, and they can't force their way into Li's house unless others give way. Shopkeeper Lu thought about the shop at home, coughed dryly, and said bravely, "Well, young Master Li, at Mr. Mo May's poetry party the day before yesterday, my son was ignorant and offended a lot. I hope the young master will be noble and don't care about it. You are of the same age, and the eldest young master must also understand the word young and vigorous. Everyone will do some ridiculous things when they are young. For example, taking a bet on a shop that does not belong to you." After saying that, he pulled Lu Kuei forward and scolded, "Why don't you kneel down and apologize to Mr. Li? Look at you, you are idle all day long, ignorant. If you were half as steady as Mr. Chiu, I wouldn't have to bother you so much." Lu Kuei's face turned red, whether from hatred or embarrassment, but he still knelt down. He lowered his head, looking very honest. Wang Yuanzhong hesitated for a moment, pushed Wang Sheng out, kicked Wang Sheng on the leg, and scolded, "Idiot! Quickly apologize to Mr. Li, and say you will never make such a joke again. You are a student who is studying, and all your expenses are the family's money. The grocery store is the only property in the family that has always been in my name. You are so bold that you take the decision without authorization and use it for bets. If this word spreads, what will others say about you? People who understand sense will say that your joke has gone too far. If you meet stupid people, they may think that the Li family is bullying others and taking away our shop." As expected of a government official, he will grasp the key points whenever he opens his mouth. After Wang Yuanzhong said these few words, Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei became ignorant children, while the Li family became a bully. Jiaran sneered, put away his big cloak, and said mockingly, "Master Wang and Master Lu can't change the fact that you want to default on your debt even if they are eloquent." At the poetry meeting that day, Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei insisted on initiating the last competition, and they also strongly advocated the addition of the two bet shops. "We were forced to fight, and we also used the cyclamen at home as a lottery at that time, Mr. M.O. May and hundreds of guests testified, and even signed a document, written in black and white, which cannot be denied. Even so, Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei still took advantage of the loopholes in the paperwork and forced our servants to compete with them. They were determined to win cyclamen and were extremely arrogant. As a result, they were really ineffective. They were even worse than our servants and lost the game. If they are willing to admit defeat, they must take out the bet and hand it over to us. This is only natural. Now that you are here, you want to expose everything because the child is ignorant. Isn't it too shameless? If we had lost the game that day, you would have been sitting in the lobby of cyclamen by now, waiting to take charge. Wang Yuanzhong and shopkeeper Lu both looked bad and gritted their teeth secretly in hatred. If their son wins the competition, they will indeed not let go of the cornucopia of cyclamen. But now that their family has lost, of course they don't want to hand over the shop anyway. Shopkeeper Lu squinted his eyes, but still had a smile on his face. He pleaded lowly, "Master Li, it was indeed our child who was at fault that day, but you are all classmates, just kidding." Jiaran waved his hands with contempt in his eyes. Shopkeeper Lu Kuei is already married and has a son. I have never heard of anyone who is over 20, a husband and a father, and can be called a child. Then when is it time to become an adult? When is it half buried or covered in a coffin? These words were so venomous that everyone couldn't help laughing. A veteran with a beard joined in the fun and said, "Oh, if you think about it this way, I am also a child of 480 months old." His old brother also cried out, "Then I am a child of 500 months old, who is going to love me?" Everyone laughed even harder, but the faces of the Wang family and the Lu family turned red and black with embarrassment. Jiaran ignored them and continued, "Also, don't say that Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng and I are classmates in the future. They had malicious plots against me and wanted to ruin my scientific research path after they were discovered. Luoan Academy has kicked them out of the academy and will never hire them. So, Lu Kuei, Wang Sheng and I are not only not classmates, we are also enemies. From now on, you two should not use the word classmate to talk about love. Even if I agree, all the teachers and students of Luoan Academy will not agree." Wang Zhongyuan was still a bit arrogant and couldn't bear to listen. "Young Master Li, I'm sorry to say that both shops are under my name and shopkeeper Liu's, so what Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei said doesn't count at all. Your bet is not valid at all. Our family will never hand over the shop for the children's jokes." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 824. Chapter 824, Take the Fire Out of the Cauldron. Shopkeeper Lu continued to salute with a wry smile, and continued to plead, "Master Li, both of our families are counting on the survival of the shop. Just show your noble hand and put this matter out of the way. We have no grievances and no enmity." Brother Cat was behind his brother, listening from beginning to end, and had lost his patience. Now he cursed loudly, "Shut your stupid mouth. Do you really think that no one knows about the scandalous things you have done? You two have added fuel to the rumors about my sister in the city before. You think our family are fools and don't know anything? I just didn't spare my hands to deal with you. Two idiots, Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei, took the initiative to come to our door and forced us to compete to win against our cyclamen. In the end, they lost their own shop, so they started to cheat. You guys are so shameless. Whenever a city wall is built, bricks and tiles are not used. Just put your shame on it. This shameful thing still dares to find broken gold beach. It's really like a dog wearing a hat to pretend to be a real person. Is it because our Li family's knives are not sharp, or do we think winter is not a good time to dig a hole and bury you alive?" As soon as he finished speaking, the veterans beside him were already cheering. Compared with the eldest young masters convincing people with reason, rough guys like them prefer the seventh young master's scolding. This is refreshing and relieving. The veterans raised their knives and clubs and shouted loudly. Young Master Chi is right, I haven't killed anyone in a few years, and my hands are itching. It's better to bury them alive. Killing people is too easy and boring. Bury them in the soil with only their heads exposed, hold them in for half an hour, and then peel off a layer of their scalps. The blood will rush to the sky like a fountain. It's so fun. Damn it, this is a good idea, this is how you should deal with the gambling stuff. The Lu family and the Wang family felt their legs weak after hearing this. Some of you who are timid will turn your head and start retching at the thought of turning into a fountain of blood. Jiaran saw that his younger brother was eager to give it a try and looked like he was not afraid of trouble. He also had a headache, so he quickly blocked Brother Cat behind him. Facing shameless people like the Lu family and the Wang family, the Li family should indeed become tougher, but they should not go too far. If the Lu family and Wang family were persecuted too badly and word spread, it would be bad for the Li family's reputation. Speaking of which, people in the world are also ignorant. Sometimes we don't look at right or wrong at all, or who is right. We will only sympathize with the worse party, and then morally kidnap the stronger party. The purpose of the Li family is just to get back the two shops and get back the victory they deserve. As for the Lu family and the Wang family, there are many ways to deal with them, and there is no need to put them all in front of others. Brother Li guessed what his eldest brother was thinking, so he reached out and pulled Brother Cat. Jiaran then said to the Lu and Wang families, Lu Kuei and Wang Sheng are your sons. Even if the shop is not under their names, since they have made a bet, they must be willing to admit defeat. And don't you keep saying that they are children. If the children make mistakes, of course you have to be the father to deal with them. At this time tomorrow, we won't receive the deed of the shop at home. Just wait for Jing Ziyin's official messenger to come to our door. Let's meet directly in court. We, the Li family, will stay with us till the end. After saying that, he ordered everyone in the second village to see off the guests. The veterans immediately rushed forward and pushed Lu and Wang's family back. How dare the Lu and Wang families refuse to leave? They don't want to become a fountain of blood. Even if someone accidentally fell down, he quickly got up and ran away stumbling. Lu Zone couldn't help but clapped his hands and said with a smile, this is how such a shameless villain should be taught a lesson. Jia Su smiled and nodded. At the poetry meeting, Wang Sheng and Lu Kuei were so arrogant. They probably didn't expect that they would be where they are today. Ji Yan opened the door and called his brothers to get in the car. The carriage turned around and took everyone home happily. Besides, the Lu family and the Wang family were indifferent when they came, but were in a state of embarrassment when they returned. The two families finally ran to the gate of the city, found a tea stall, and drank a cup of hot tea to warm their stomachs. As a result, not long after we sat down, the Wang family's boy came over. As soon as he saw Wang Zhonyuan, the boy rushed to him and shouted, Master, please go home quickly. Someone from the Yamen has come and brought all your things back. He said you don't have to go to work anymore. What? Wang Yuanzong's expression changed completely and he didn't want to believe it at all. As the old saying goes, the king of is easy to meet, but the devil is difficult to deal with. He is the little devil in the Yamen. Whoever comes to the Yamen to do business, regardless of the forces behind it or how powerful they are, they must be dealt with by these little devils. The minimum amount is 1 or 2 taels of silver, and the maximum amount is 5 taels or 10 taels, almost every day. The grocery store on the commercial street was bought by him after saving up his scraps of money. Having been frightened by the Li family just now, he was still thinking that at worst, the shop would be given to the Li family. As long as there were errands, he could always buy another one in a few years. Unexpectedly, now I have been kicked out of the cauldron. The shop is gone and the errands are gone, what will happen next? The Li family is so cruel, they are not letting us live. Wang Zhongyuan's face turned pale and he gritted his teeth with hatred. Wang Sheng couldn't help but come up with an idea. Dad, do you want to go find your uncle and think of a solution? Before he could finish speaking, he was slapped by his father and fell to the ground. Idiot, your uncle is also a shop owner, what ability does he have? He wanted to help, so he came to the house yesterday. As for why he hasn't shown up yet? You still have the nerve to speak, our family will be destroyed in your hands. Wang Sheng's head was buzzing with pain and he did not dare to speak anymore. He felt extremely regretful. Had he known this, he would never have proposed a playoff at the poetry meeting. But in the final analysis, the Li family is still hateful. Maybe they already knew that their slave was very capable, and they deliberately made things difficult for him to lure him into taking the bait. Actually, this is an injustice to the Li family. Gilai is usually diligent and silent. Apart from his good accounting records, I really don't see anything special about him. How did you expect that this kid would become a blockbuster this time? Mr. Zhang loves to play and laugh, seems to have no ambition and is greedy for pleasure, but he sincerely protects Gu Li. That day when Gilai returned to school and talked about the poetry meeting, he was severely scolded by him. This time it was good luck, the old man's exam topics were ones they had discussed on weekdays. What if you are unfamiliar with it? If Gilai lost, wouldn't it mean that the owner's shop would also be lost? It's too bold and risky. Mr. Zhang personally went to the Li family to apologize, and asked Gu Li to go on an inspection tour of the Bianjian branch in the nearby state capital. After this trip, it will take at least half a month to come back. By then, the handover of the two shops had been completed, and people in Zindu had forgotten about Gilai. At dark time, Li Zhensheng, Li Laoer and Mr. Wen came back from the city. It just so happened that the dinner at home had just been served, and the sauerkraut pickled in the big earthenware vat was just right to eat. Pick out a few and cut them into shreds, then kill 2 big geese, stew them for more than half an hour, and the aroma will fill the yard. It was put in a snow-white porcelain basin and placed in the middle of the table. It was steaming, and all the men, women, and children were smiling. Mrs. Li took Mrs. Wen, Tao Hongying, Waner, and Wenjuan, and Jiyan and the 3 children to set up a table on the kong in the house. As for the young and old men, they ate in the main room. Such a good dish, of course you have to drink wine. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 825. Chapter 825 Price but no market. So Brother Cat happily picked up the wine flask and filled the wine bowls for his father and his second uncle, not forgetting to keep some for himself. Everyone laughed when they saw it. Li Zhensheng patted his son but didn't stop him. He was out and about all year round, and his early experiences were wonderful enough. So, he does not advocate raising the children in the family to be too honest and well-behaved. Otherwise, when you grow up and go out in the future, you will easily suffer a disadvantage. It is normal for the boy to be a drinker by nature, like to do things with his hands, and be very curious. When you are young, you cannot do whatever you want and be free. When you get older and have a family, you will have more things to worry about and it will be too late to regret. Seeing this, Jiaran, Brother Li and Jiasu also joined in the fun and poured half a bowl of wine. On the contrary, Luzon needed to avoid drinking because he was taking medicinal soup to condition his body, so he could only satisfy his craving by nibbling goose meat. Li Laoer thought of something and asked, "Have the old men in the backyard and Dr. Zhang given away goose meat?" "Sent it away," Cat Brother responded quickly, "Second uncle, I personally took someone to deliver it, so don't worry. Our family killed 8 geese today, and even Aunt Daong and Uncle Liu's family also gave a pot to them." Li Laoer then nodded and asked, "I heard that the Lu family and the Wang family came to plead for mercy today." Jiaran replied, "Yes, Dad, these 2 families are really at odds with each other. They want to expose this matter under the guise of a child's joke and don't want to expose it to the public. Li Zhensheng sneered when he heard this, and said, "Don't worry, today I will cut off the rest of their family's business. Your father has taken away Wang Yuanzong's errand. They will keep it and deliver the deed tomorrow." Really, Brother Cat was extremely happy. This is how we should deal with them. They are so ignorant that they are so disgusting. Let's see if they dare to act smart and scheme with others in the future. Brother Li also said, "The Lu family and the Wang family are so dishonest and do not keep their word. Even if we don't hand over the shop, no one will dare to do business with them in the future." Jiaren thought more carefully, "When we get the shop, we will make preparations and go visit Mr. Mo Mei and other old gentlemen to express our condolences and thank you. In order to help us collect debts, several old gentlemen may have become angry." After hearing the good news in the room, he quickly said, "Brother, I will prepare the thank you gifts for the old gentlemen. You can find potted flowers, fruits, and vegetables in the greenhouse, and you can get a thank you gift by looking for it. It's decent and doesn't cost any money." Jiaren disagreed and refused loudly, "No, we can just go to the city to buy a thank you gift. The flowers, plants, and fruits in your greenhouse are all grown by you with great hard work. You can just eat them at home. It's not good to pick them out every time and give them as gifts. Besides, several old gentlemen are willing to help us in order to protect us naturally. We have to pay for the thank you gifts." Jiyan insisted, and simply carried the rice bowl out of the house, sat down between the eldest uncle and the second uncle, and said, "Brother, why are you being polite to me? Those two shops are not being given to me to start a new life fresh shop. Those old gentlemen are just helping me, so of course they want me to give them a thank you gift. Besides, these old gentlemen's families are doing well, so they don't need ordinary thank you gifts. If you send vegetables, fruits, and potted flowers, everyone will know that our family grew them themselves, and they will definitely be happy and not burdened by the harvest." Jiaren thought about it and realized that this was indeed true. He could only smile and shake his head. He gave his sister a goose leg and reluctantly agreed. "Okay, I'll listen to you. Your mouth is getting worse and worse, and no one can talk to you." Jiyan gnawed on the goose leg and said proudly, "I'm in charge, of course you have to listen to me." Everyone laughed along with them, and then said that visiting several old men separately was too eye-catching, so why not send a post to Mr. Mo Mei in the name of the Earl's mansion? Mr. Mo Mei will come forward to invite several other old gentlemen. It will be most convenient for them to meet at Mo Mei courtyard. In this case, just prepare 6 portions of vegetables, fruits, and 6 pots of flowers at home. 6 pots of flowers must be of different varieties and quality. It is up to the old gentleman to decide how to distribute them. It can be predicted that the scene will be very lively. At noon on the second day, the Li family and the Wang family indeed sent the deed of the shop to Sujintan. Jiaren entered the city with them in a carriage, quickly changed his name, and went to the government office. As a result, the industry under the name of Jiyan has gained 2 new members. This is a piece of pie from the sky. You must know that the shops on the shopping street are much more expensive now than when the capital was first moved. It can be said that there is a price but no market. Now, the Li family has acquired 2 rooms without spending a single tael of silver, which makes everyone who hears about it can't help but be jealous. Some people say harsh words, and the Li family is using their power to bully others. But most people are sensible enough and willing to speak out fairly. Because there were too many people who could testify at the poetry meeting that day. It was Wang Sheng and Lu Kui who wanted to commit suicide. The Li family fought back despite being plotted against them. The plot was even more exciting than the script. Now that the Lu family and the Wang family are offering their shop, they are just willing to admit defeat. What everyone is more curious about is that the little steward of the Li family is so secretive that he actually wrote such a good article and won easily. It's a pity that no matter how curious everyone is and how much they want to see the legendary steward, they still can't succeed. Because Gilai has been arranged by Mr. Zhang to hide out. The Lu family and the Wang family were afraid that the Li family would continue to retaliate and lose their errands and shops, and they would not be able to survive in Xian. So the two of them quickly sold the goods in the shop at low prices, took the money, packed up the goods overnight, and left the new capital at dawn. Both shops are locked, but we have to wait for Jiyan to decide how to renovate them. For this reason, Brother Li and Brother Mao stayed in the shop all morning to draw detailed structural drawings for their sister. Jiyan wants to decorate it like the small supermarket in her previous life. It is spacious, quiet, and has attentive service. It is a high-end fruit and vegetable shop that specializes in making money from the rich and powerful. The main purpose is, of course, rob the rich and give to the poor. In the next few days, she rushed to the princess's mansion and started drawing plans over and over again. It's a pity that I haven't visited the store, and I think it's awkward no matter how designed it is. Once the dimensions are wrong or unclear, someone has to go to the shop to actually measure them. In the end, even Cat Brother, who was most willing to go out, was so tired that he said, "Sister, we might as well rent out the shop. Otherwise, before your fresh food shop opens, your seventh brother will go to see the Lord of Hell." Brother Cat was leaning on the rocking chair, looking like he was breathing more out than in. I didn't want to. Mrs. Lee was walking around now, and she heard her grandson say this when she entered the door. She was so angry that she slapped him in the face and cursed, "You brat, you dare to say anything nonsense. Be careful when I get a needle and thread and sew your mouth shut." The cat brother was beaten and the mouse ran away. Jiyan ran forward, hugged her grandma's arm and shook her with a smile. Old Mrs. Lee knew her granddaughter well, and before she could speak, she said, "I don't agree." Jiyan was frustrated and shook her grandma more and more coquettishly. "Grandma doesn't care about Fu Niu anymore. I haven't said anything yet, so why don't you agree?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 826. Chapter 826. The disguise was successful. "Humph, you were brought up by me. As soon as you stick your tail out, I know you are going to a lot." Mrs. Lee's hair almost fell apart when her granddaughter rocked it. She quickly held it together with one hand and gently pinched her granddaughter's tender face with the other. "If you say no, it's just no. Don't pester me, I just can't let you go into the city." Jiyan was discouraged, his mouth was flat, his head was drooping, and he looked pitiful. Even the golden-winged butterfly in the hairpin seemed to have lost its vitality. "Hey, if you don't want to go, don't go. I know Grandma is doing it for my own good, but it's so pitiful to be locked up at home every day, like a bird in a cage, without freedom." Her voice was choked up as she spoke. "If there are always bad people who want to hurt me in the future, do I have to hide at home all the time? 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, when will it be the end? It's better not to live anymore." How could old Mrs. Lee bear this? She felt distressed at that time. She has been raising her granddaughter in the palm of her hand since she was born. She has given stars to stars and moon to moon. When has she ever felt so wronged? She didn't care about her bun. She hugged her granddaughter and started to coax her. "My lucky girl, if you don't cry, it's your grandma's fault. Grandma can't speak, which makes you sad. Grandma is doing it for your own good, and is afraid that you will be plotted by bad people when you go out. If you are injured even a little bit, not to mention bleeding or losing a hair, Grandma will not be able to bear it." Jiyan crawled into Grandma's arms, becoming more and more aggrieved and choked with sobs. "I know Grandma is doing it for my own good, but I've been at home for more than half a month and haven't even gone out. I don't just want to go out for fun, I just want to check out 2 new shops. I will be responsible for repairs and operations in the future. I will definitely never go there again. Isn't this okay? I can pretend to be a maid or a boy and follow my brothers quietly, isn't that okay? Otherwise, I can hide under the carriage and sneak into the city. Mrs. Lee was distressed at first, but she came to her senses when her granddaughter's words became more and more outrageous. Sure enough, she pulled her granddaughter out of her arms. There were no tears on the little girl's face. It was just thunder and no rain. Old Mrs. Lee was so angry that she didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and cursed, "Damn girl, you know how to play tricks on an old lady like me." Hey, Ji-yin's secret was revealed, and she quickly returned to her coquettish ways with a silly smile. She hugged Grandma and refused to let go. She begged, "Grandma, just agree, I really won't get into trouble. Zhengqi and I are about the same size, so I dressed up as him and came back in 2 hours." Brother Cat usually bickers most with his sister, but he is also really doting on her. At this moment, he also stepped forward and helped to plead, "Grandma, please let Fu Niu go out." My brothers and I all followed him and asked her to pretend to be a servant. There were more than a dozen people in the group, and no one could tell what was wrong. We would go back together and there would be nothing wrong with her. Fu Niu has had the final say on everything since she was a child, and she's used to running out every day. If you keep her at home like this, if she gets sick from depression, you'll feel bad again. I have to say that the last 2 sentences really scared Mrs. Lee. Earlier, my granddaughter pretended to be sick. Although she knew it was fake, every time she saw it, she would be so sad that she couldn't eat. I simply can't imagine what she would do if her granddaughter was really sick. Seeing her grandma's hesitation, Ji-yin jumped up immediately. "Grandma, wait a minute, I'll dress up as Zhengqi to show you." With that said, she ran back to the bedroom, got into the space, and quickly dressed up. The time difference between home and abroad made her very calm and took care of her from head to toe. Mrs. Lee didn't take her granddaughter's little trick seriously at first, but when the door opened, she turned around and was shocked. A half-grown man came in from the outside, wearing gray clothes and trousers. He was thin and dark-skinned. When he walked, he leaned forward slightly, looking very humble. At first glance, no one would doubt that this is Brother Cat's little boy Zhengqi. As long as you are more careful, no one will find out that you are a woman disguised as a man. Don't tell me, they really look alike. Mrs. Lee was extremely curious. She looked at her granddaughter from the front and back, and kept asking, "Why are your neck and hands so dark?" "It's because you wiped the bottom of the pot gray." Ji-yin chuckled, turned around a few times triumphantly, and took the opportunity to seduce the old lady. "Grandma, when you are free, I will dress you up as a man, and you will know when the time comes." She has learned a lot of miscellaneous skills in the past few years. Simply change your clothes and act like a boy, it's a piece of cake. She struck while the iron was hot and said, "Grandma, Brother Chi and I will accompany you back to your old house. If anyone else discovers the disguise on the way, I will not go into the city. But if no one notices it, it proves that the disguise is successful and will not be discovered. You can allow me to go out for 2 hours, okay?" Old Mrs. Lee was helpless and felt sorry for her granddaughter, so she said, "Okay, let's go back right now." The 3 grandsons and grandsons simply packed up and left the princess's mansion. Brother Cat supported Grandma and walked forward, while Grandma Chang took a step behind and followed behind. Ji-yin carried a basket with 2 handfuls of cabbage and 7 or 8 pears. She was slightly bent and walked at the end. At this time, lunch was just about to take place in the village, and women from every house were carrying firewood or going down to the cellar to get some potatoes and cabbage. Occasionally, I saw Mrs. Lee and others passing by. A woman stopped her work and said hello with a smile. "Old madam, are you going to the princess?" "Yes," old Mrs. Lee responded with a smile, "I have nothing to do. I go out for a walk and do needlework on the Kong all day long. I feel that my bones are sore. As she spoke, Mrs. Li called out the good news again, Zhengqi, give me 2 pears for your Aunt Wang. Jiyan quickly stepped forward and handed over 2 pears. The woman was very happy but a little embarrassed. She took the pears and ran back to the house to bring a small pot of mustard greens to Mrs. Li. Old madam, I heard that we don't have pickled mustard dumplings this year. If you don't mind, try ours. Okay, Mrs. Li asked Grandma Chang to take it over and said with a smile, recently, when I get up early to drink porridge, I really want to eat mustard shreds mixed with chili oil, and you brought it here. What a coincidence. The woman was so happy that she kept saying, I've marinated a jar full of it. When the old lady has finished eating, just ask someone to pick it up. After chatting for a few more words, Mrs. Li and her party continued walking home. I met another naughty boy who brought a big bowl of chicken stewed with mushrooms. When he saw old Mrs. Li, he stepped forward and saluted. Before she could ask, he said, Old madam, my family has killed chickens. My mother asked me to give a bowl to Grandpa Zhao and the others. Hey, good boy, that's right, when we were fleeing the famine on the road, you kids were looked after by your Grandpa Zhao and the others, and you suffered a lot for this. Now that you are older, you also know how to be filial. This is a good thing. Mrs. Li smiled and patted the naughty boy on the back, and shouted, Zhengqi, give Niu Waer 2 pears. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 827. Chapter 827, Encounter on the Street. The naughty boy was so happy that his nose was boiling. He took the pears, bowed and thanked them, stuffed them into his arms, and then ran away with a chest full of chicken and stewed mushrooms. Orange Mrs. Li and others were amused by the naughty boy and laughed until they entered the door of the old house. Only then did Mrs. Li realize that her granddaughter was still following behind. Surely no one recognized it? Old Mrs. Li couldn't say what she said, so she could only say, if you want to go to the city, go to the city. You must be back in 2 hours. He jumped up with a cheer at the good news. Soon, Jiaran, Li Gear, Luzong, and Jiasu all heard the news and quickly dressed up, preparing to follow the car to be the flower protectors. Jiyan carefully repaired the disguise to make it more realistic, and then followed his brothers into the carriage. To avoid being spotted, she didn't even bring Shui Ling or Shui Yun with her. Fortunately, Jiaran asked Zhang Sanjiang to follow his sister, and Yeshan also jumped on the carriage. With them staying close at hand, even if someone discovers him, it may not be able to harm Jiyan. What's more, Luzong also brought 20 guards. The carriage left the village all the way, and the good news was like a bird out of its cage. He pushed the window open a small gap and kept looking around excitedly. Jiaran and Luzong all laughed when they saw her, and they didn't pull her back until they reached the city gate. The location where the Lu families and Wang's stores are located is not the most prosperous location in the middle of the shopping street, but it is not bad. Counting from the commercial street, it happens to be the 5th and 6th stores. If you get off the carriage at the street corner, you can walk more than 10 feet to get there. The Wang family's shop is on the 1st floor, with 3 neatly arranged facades and a large courtyard at the back. It can accommodate people on weekdays, and can also store some grain, oil, and dry goods. The Lu family's shop next door has 2 floors. The 1st floor sells fabrics, and the 2nd floor is an embroidery shop where you can customize clothes. The 2nd floor occupies a relatively large area, so the backyard is inevitably smaller, but it also has a kitchen, a well, and 3 main rooms where people can live. Jiyan originally wanted to open 2 shops, sell fresh food on the 1st floor, and sell hot pot or barbecue on the 2nd floor. But after walking around for a while, she changed her mind again. It is better to turn the 3 shops into fruit and vegetable stores, and turn the 2-story building next door into a restaurant that combines grilling and hot pot. In this way, the business of fruit and vegetable stores may be lighter in summer, but they will make a lot of money in winter. It is a restaurant that combines barbecue and hot pot. In summer, it sells grilled skewers and various braised dishes and cold dishes. In winter, it sells hot pot or barbecue. Whether it's winter or summer, as long as the breeze blows and the fragrance wafts up, everyone will be salivating, and the money will flow into the money box like water. Jiaran saw his sister standing in the yard, drooling and giggling. He quickly stepped forward to stop her and asked in a low voice, "Fu Niuer, what are you thinking about? Hurry up and measure and survey. Let's go home after we're done." Jiyan quickly wiped her saliva and looked around. There was indeed no outsider, so she took her eldest brother's arm and said with a smile, "Brother, these 2 shops will definitely be our family's treasure trove in the future." Jiaran couldn't help laughing at his sister's money obsession, but he still scratched her nose and corrected her, "This is your cornucopia, not ours. This shop is in your name, and we won't be able to help you run the business in the future. Of course, all the money you earn will be yours. Don't even think about sharing it with us again. Keep it for yourself. You can also put it in the dowry list when you get married." Jiyan smiled and said nothing. The shop may be hers, but after earning money, she still has to buy some nice things for her brother as a thank you gift. Without my brothers going to the poetry club, these 2 shops wouldn't exist. However, it's not easy to argue about these things outside now. It's not too late to talk about it when you get home. Luzong and Jiasu were also wandering around, listening to the conversation between the Jiaran brothers and sisters, and they couldn't help but be envious. There are also brothers and sisters in their family. Although they have never harmed each other, there is competition when it comes to concubines, family property, and the preferences of the elders. If there are too many fights, we will not be able to get close to each other. Like the Li brothers and sisters, they can only think about it, but they cannot achieve it at all. After spending more than half an hour, Jiyan finally surveyed both shops clearly. She stuffed the small notebook into her arms, and then said to her brothers with a smile, "My brothers are tired from following me today. Come on, let's go home for dinner. I will cook 2 delicious dishes myself." Brother Cat was the first to cheer, "Great, I want to eat meat. My legs have become thin these days and I need to make up for it." Everyone laughed, and Luzong said, "Your legs are already thin, but you can't rely on my sister." Jiaran asked Zhenglu to pack the carriage and take a look in the shop. If there was nothing missing, he led everyone out. Jiyan bent down, changed back to a young boy, and followed his brothers behind. Everyone was chatting and laughing as they went out. Zheng Sanjian quickly locked both shops. Something happened at the corner of the street, causing a group of people to watch and make a lot of noise. Jiyan was curious for a moment and took a look while standing on the steps. As a result, she didn't see any excitement, but she heard someone whispering a question next to her. "Sister Jiyan." Jiyan was startled and turned around to see Beizu with a maid standing just a few steps away. She recognized her completely. Beizu dropped the maid and ran forward in surprise. She pulled Jiyan's hand with surprise on her face and asked in a low voice, "Sister Jiyan, why are you pretending to be a servant? I almost didn't recognize you." Jiyan rolled her eyes, turned around to see if there was no suspicious person around, then took the orb and stood behind her brothers. She asked in a low voice, "You are still talking about me? Aren't you also pretending to be a servant? What's going on? You also sneaked out." Beizu giggled and touched her nose shyly, "My mother won't let me go out to play. I really have no choice but to pretend to be a boy, sneak out to buy some delicious food, and then go back quickly, so my mother won't find out." Jiyan looked around. This was not a good place to talk, so he said to Jiaran, "Brother, please go back to the shop and sit for a while. There are too many people here. Jiren nodded, and everyone opened the door of the shop and retreated. In the backyard of the two-story building, the three main rooms are close to the alley at the back. All the tables, chairs, and benches have been left in the house, so they can take a break. Jiyan tugged at Beizu's clothes, his eyes full of helplessness. You even want to pretend to be a servant, but you should also act like one. Whose boy makes clothes and pants out of silk? Also, do any of the boys wear gold earrings? Does the boy look so fair, fat, and clean? Beizu was a little itchy when she pulled him, so he smiled and hid, and quickly begged for mercy. Oh, Sister Jiyan, don't be too serious, I just come out to have fun and don't do bad things. It doesn't matter if others recognize that I am a girl who can arrest me in broad daylight. After saying that, she changed her subject and asked, Sister Jiyan, my mother said you were going to hide at home, why did you come out? I also wanted to buy some delicious food and have someone deliver it to you. After saying that, she hugged Jiyan and acted like a baby, but her stomach rumbled. As if it was contagious, Jiyan's stomach also started to growl. Then it's Cat brothers, Lee brothers. Jiren was amused, so he said, I see there is a row of sheds in the back alley selling snacks. Why not buy a few bowls of wontons or something to fill your stomach first? Before the words were spoken, someone was shouting outside the courtyard wall, fresh meat glutinous rice balls, freshly made meat glutinous rice balls. Brother Cat jumped up at that time and shouted, I'll buy it. Jiren ordered, take Sansu Zheng with you and be careful. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 828. Chapter 828, Taking Advantage of the Situation. I know, Brother Cat responded with a smile. Not only did he call Zheng Sanjiang, but Zheng Lu was also dragged out by him. Soon, they came back from outside with a pile of bowls and chopsticks and a large pot of hot meat glutinous rice balls. The glutinous rice float on the surface of the soup. They are fat and round. No matter how you look at them, they are so delicious. Beizu cheered and was about to go up to help, but was stopped by Brother Cat. He quickly pointed outside, and then greeted loudly, come and serve the glutinous rice balls, haha, I want to eat 2 bowls, no one can compete with me. Let's eat quickly and return the bowls and chopsticks when we're done. The sister-in-law who sells glutinous rice is still waiting outside. It's not easy to take care of a child in such a cold weather. Everyone understood and their expressions changed. Brother Lee quickly said, have you given me any money? I'll give you more rewards later. Oh, do you even need to say this? As long as it tastes good, I can give them all the money in my pocket, Brother Cat continued to shout, scratching his neck. At this time, Jiyan had quickly poured some soup. After a brief inspection, he whispered, there is mist grass in the soup. It is an ordinary medicine. It will take effect in a quarter of an hour. It should be in a hurry. They were not prepared enough and could only use this. Brother Cat excitedly raised his fist and said in a lowered voice, the woman selling glutinous rice must be pretending, I smelled a faint smell of blood on her body. The little girl she was holding was crying hard. She also said that the child was making noises and wanted to eat candied haws, but whose child was making trouble and trembled at the same time. Humph, you still want to deceive me, just keep dreaming. On normal days, everyone would definitely have a few jokes, but at this time, no one had the intention to do so. At present, there is a big enemy. Whether to meet the enemy or avoid it is a serious question. Jiren narrowed his eyes slightly, glanced at everyone in the room, and the Lu family guards in the yard, and made quick calculations in his mind. Today Jiyan came to the shop dressed as a boy. It was an impromptu idea, so it was impossible for the family to leak the news. but the fact that the Li family won these two shops before was well known to everyone in Zindu. The Wu family must have placed spies nearby to keep an eye on them. Just now at the door of the shop, Beizu unexpectedly recognized the good news and said, "Sister, good news, someone must have heard it. This is a busy city and it is broad daylight. The Wu family does not dare to send too many people here to cause too much killing. So, the Wu family came up with the bad idea of drugging them, hoping to stun them and take away the good news. Otherwise, if things really get messed up, the Wu family may not end well. After all, in their line of work, in addition to their 4 brothers and sisters, there are also the princes Jiasu, Beizu, and Luzong. Jiaran breathed a sigh of relief after thinking about this. He touched the crossbow arrow on his arm, then looked at Zheng Sanjiang and Yeshan, the Lu family guards in the yard. There were nearly 30 of them. If the arrangement is good, we can definitely keep the Wu family members. In this way, the witness is in hand, and the family does not have to wait any longer. Jiaran was cruel and said quickly, "At this time, it's too late to hide, so we might as well give it a try." After a while, we pretended to be eating glutinous rice in the yard. Fu Niuer and Beizu stayed in the house, and Brother Cat went to bring people in, close the door and beat the dog. "Uncle Shan, please protect Fu Niuer and Beizu in the house. You must not come out until the matter is over. In addition, everyone should calculate the time, choose the right position to fall down, wait for the opponent's men to come in, and counter-attack in time, so that there will be no survivors. Of course the premise is to pay attention to safety and don't get hurt." Everyone nodded and took action immediately with excited expressions. Brother Li quickly poured out half of the dumplings into a bowl, put 1 or 2 in each bowl, crushed them, and made it look like most of them were eaten. Jiyan thought about it for a while, then she filled a bowl for herself and Beizu, and sat at the table with the door half open. Yashin hid behind the door and pressed against the wall. Unless you go into the house and look carefully, you won't be able to find his presence at all. Soon, the dumpling basin was brought under the eaves, and the guards in the courtyard also got the news. Everyone was holding bowls and scattered in the courtyard, discussing loudly how delicious the glutinous rice were and shouting that they were not enough. At this time, Brother Cat opened the courtyard door and greeted the woman who was selling glutinous rice dumplings at the door with a smile. "Sister-in-law, the glutinous rice are so delicious that 1 pot isn't enough. Why don't you carry the load in and cook them for us to eat now? We'll take care of it all, so you don't have to go around hawking it." The woman hesitated for a moment, as if hesitant. But Brother Cat pretended not to see it, raised his head, poured the remaining noodle soup in the bowl into his mouth, and wiped his mouth generously with his sleeve. Sure enough, the woman's eyes flashed with joy. She picked up the burden and dragged the silly little girl into the yard. When everyone saw her coming in, they all smiled and praised her while holding bowls. The woman quickly glanced around and felt more relieved when she saw that everyone was eating, including the guards. She quickly helped everyone add glutinous rice dumplings, and even came to the door of the house and asked enthusiastically, "I also brought sweet glutinous rice dumplings. I wonder if you ladies would like to try them. Many ladies have eaten it and they all like it." Jiyan and Beizu were chatting and joking in the house. When he saw the woman poking her head at the door, Jiyan stepped forward, glared at the woman arrogantly and closed the door hard. The woman was a little embarrassed, so she quickly stepped back and hugged the little girl, looking like an honest person. Brother Cat seemed to like the little girl very much. He took out a few pennies from his purse and called the little girl over. "Little sister, come here, I will give you money, and I will buy candied haws in a while." The little girl looked like she was only 4 or 5 years old, with a dazed look on her face, and said nothing. Brother Cat asked, "Sister-in-law, is this child mute? Is it like this when he is born? Has he been seen by a doctor?" A flash of anxiety flashed in the woman's eyes, and she wanted to block Brother Cat's mouth. But at such a critical moment, she couldn't reveal her fault, so she could only reply, "Yes, this child has indeed not been able to speak since he was a child. I also started doing some small business in order to raise money for her medical treatment." After saying that, she gave the little girl a hard push on the back, and the little girl staggered and threw herself in front of Brother Cat. Brother Cat gave her the copper coins, but he seemed to be unsteady. One of the coins fell to the ground and rolled to the corner of the wall. Brother Cat smiled and led the little girl to pick it up. As soon as he walked to the wall, Brother Cat's figure became a little swaying. He patted his head and said angrily, "Why am I suddenly dizzy?" Jiarongsu, who was standing not far away, wanted to help him, but he staggered 2 steps and fell together with the cat brother, suppressing the little girl under him intentionally or unintentionally. Their collapse was like turning on a switch. Everyone in the courtyard dropped the bowls in their hands one after another, and fell to the ground with a thud. No one knew what was going on. The woman sneered, straightened her back, took out a wooden whistle from her arms, and blew 3 times. Soon, 2 burly men came over from outside the courtyard wall. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 829. Chapter 829, Reinforcements from Heaven. One was dressed as a charcoal seller, carrying a large wicker basket behind his back, and even had black charcoal foam on his half-worn clothes. The other is a firewood seller with an axe on his waist. They both have ordinary looks. If they were walking on the street, no one would guess that what they are really doing is a knife-edge business. The two came to the woman's side and quickly glanced at the unconscious people. The charcoal seller couldn't help but praise in a low voice, "Okay, female scorpion, good job, you brought down these idiots so easily." The firewood seller was obviously more cautious. He took off the axe from his waist and held it in his hand. "Hurry up and put the girl the master wants into the basket and take it away. Be careful not to waste your time and cause trouble." The woman pointed to the door of the house and said, "The person is in the house, you go and pretend, I will take care of the little guy who is covering up." After saying that, she took the dagger from the burden and was about to go across the yard to kill the little girl. Most of the little girl's body was pressed by Jiaran and cat brother, unable to move. She was so frightened that she could only whimper desperately and couldn't say a word. The charcoal seller and the firewood seller naturally did not intercede for the little girl, so they turned and walked towards the door. Just when their hands were about to touch the door leaf, the woman suddenly let out a scream. Before they could turn around to look, the sound of wind had already reached their ears. The two of them were so frightened that their hair stood on end and they quickly hid aside. But the charcoal seller had no such luck. He was shot in the shoulder by a crossbow arrow, and blood flowed out immediately. He grunted in pain, ignored it, and ran straight towards the courtyard wall, wanting to run away. Unexpectedly, several of the guards who had fallen on the road had jumped up, pulled out their sabers, and slashed at them. The charcoal seller pulled it around his waist. What looked like an ordinary blue-gray belt turned out to be a soft whip. His skills are not weak either, and the soft whip dances so tightly that even several guards cannot get close to him. Even after being stabbed in the back, he managed to find a gap and jumped onto the wall. Seeing that the charcoal seller was about to escape from the yard, several guards went crazy with fear and were about to rush in to give chase, but the charcoal seller screamed and fell off the wall again. His right shoulder and 2 calves had 3 flying knives inserted into them, and the knives were deeply embedded in his skin and flesh. The guards were startled and couldn't guess who helped. However, this did not delay them. They quickly stepped forward and removed the charcoal seller's jaw and searched for all the weapons on his body. On the other side, the firewood seller has been cornered by Zheng Sanjiang and Zheng Lu. The three Grn brothers pressed the crossbows on their arms, looking for opportunities to respond at any time. The firewood seller was so angry that he tried his best to resist the axe. He finally got distracted and glanced at the woman who was his accomplice. As a result, the woman had been tied up, her hands, feet and chin were removed, and she was lying on the ground, not knowing whether she was alive or dead. The little girl who was almost silenced was hiding behind a guard and looking at him from a distance, her eyes full of hatred. The firewood seller's heart trembled. The woman who really sold glutinous rice was the little girl's mother. He deceived her into a dark place under the pretext of buying glutinous rice balls, and then her throat was cut by a female scorpion. Could he also end up like this? Is this what happened today? The more he thought about it, the more unwilling he became, so he suddenly took out a bottle from his arms and threw it towards everyone. Everyone was alert and retreated suddenly. Taking advantage of this gap, the firewood seller punched open the window sash next to him and rushed in. At the critical moment, a dagger and a handful of medicinal powder were thrown out of the window. The firewood seller was caught off guard and inhaled a large mouthful of powdered medicine, and his shoulder was pierced by a dagger. So I was half lying on the windowsill, unable to get in or out? Zheng Sanjiang's quick eyesight and quick hands quickly pulled the firewood seller away, removed his jaw in two strokes, and took out the fangs. At this point, the three enemies have successfully captured them alive. Everyone subconsciously looked at the window. Beizu was opening his hands in confusion, with some remaining medicinal powder on his hands. Jiasu angrily yelled, "I told you to hide, why are you joining in the fun? What should I do if I get hurt?" Beizu moved her mouth a few times, and her knotted brain circuit finally connected. She shouted unconvinced, "I'm hiding, but if the bad guys come in, I can't just watch." Jiasu was still going to speak, but Jiyan had already held the orb by his side. Just now, she and Baozu were listening to the fighting outside. They were really worried about it, so they touched the window, trying to break the window paper and take a peek. Yashan couldn't stop him, so he stayed aside. Unexpectedly, as soon as they reached the window was smashed open. Yashan threw out the dagger, which was expected. But Beizu also dared to sprinkle medicinal powder, but Jiyan didn't expect it. She quickly stuffed an antidote into the orb, fearing that the remaining medicinal powder in the air would injure the orb. After stuffing the antidote, Jiyan still couldn't help complaining, "You are so brave. You relied on me to beg for the powder, and you actually used it here." Baozu was also a little scared, and hugged Jiyan tightly, his round body trembling. After a long while, she choked up and said, "Sister Jiyan, I will never sneak out again. I didn't expect to meet you today, at the door, I shouldn't have called you, I didn't know this would happen. I haven't seen you for a long time, I'm so happy. I feel uncomfortable in my heart, I want to protect you, just to prevent bad people from coming in." What Beizu said was a little confusing, but Jiyan understood it clearly. This greedy fat girl is just naive, not stupid. Has guessed that it might be because of his identity that he accidentally called out Jiyan, which caused this disaster. She had just thrown out the medicinal powder, and everyone else thought it was a coincidence. Only she knows that she has been holding the powder in her hand and blocking the good news, just wanting to help arrest people and make up for her mistakes. "Silly girl," Jiyan ruffled Beizu's hair, "I came to the shop dressed as a servant, and I didn't tell you in advance. Of course you would say hello when we met unexpectedly. You didn't mean to harm me, so how could I blame you, don't take it to heart. Besides, you also helped catch the bad guy just now, which is enough to make up for the crime." Really, Beizu wiped away her tears, her eyes regained light, and asked, "Sister Jiyan, you will still send me fruits and snacks in the future, right?" Hearing the good news, he couldn't laugh or cry, and nodded quickly, "Yes, yes, you can eat as much as you want." "Haha, Sister Jiyan is the best. Bezu immediately changed his smile, hugged Jiyan's neck and jumped and screamed. Jiyan bent over under the pressure, and everyone outside the window also breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. At this time, a man of about half a size suddenly jumped up on the wall of the courtyard. He had a dark complexion, his eyes were rolling, and he stretched his neck to look into the courtyard. Everyone was startled and quickly picked up their weapons to gather together. But the black guy waved his hands vigorously and shouted, "Don't get me wrong, I'm not a bad person. The one who ran away just now was the one we helped stop." When Zheng Lu heard this, he ran out from under the eaves. After looking for a while, he shouted in surprise, "Little third brother." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 830. Chapter 830. This boy is interesting. The black boy laughed, even more proudly, "Xiao Liuzi, you are such a loser. You were touched into the yard and almost ran away. You should really go back." He was only halfway through speaking when he saw Zheng Sanjiang walking out with a cold face. He immediately felt like a that had been strangled, and all the words he said were suppressed in his stomach. Zheng Sanjiang glanced at him and asked lightly, "Where is Zheng Yi, are you all together?" Zheng San nodded quickly and said, "Uncle Third, please open the door for us. Brother Yi and Brother Mu are both outside. We also caught two tongues, which should be useful." Everyone's eyes were bright when they heard it, and the tongue was a spy or a lookout. So, the courtyard door was quickly opened. A young man and a half-grown man came in dragging two unconscious people. The middle-aged man is fair and fat, with a smiling face that seems to be very honest, but his small eyes are shining, and it is obvious that he is not as harmless as he looks. The young man was dressed in black, with a thin figure, a bronze complexion, and handsome eyebrows, but the corners of his mouth that were always raised seemed to be partly sarcastic and partly unruly. His gaze was as sharp as a knife, and he did not shrink back when he swept across the crowd. Jiyan held the orb on her arm and stood beside her brothers, curiously looking at the young man a few more times. The young man may have noticed something, and then his eyes swept over. Jiyan looked at him and saw indifference and defensiveness in his eyes. When he wanted to study it further, the young man turned his eyes away. The half-grown boy took the initiative to step forward and salute, "Masters, I am Zheng Yi. I was sent out on errands by the Marquis together with my third son. I just returned to Zindu today. I won't go out anymore, I will just wait at home." Jiaran looked at Zheng Sanjiang, and when he saw him nodding, he no longer had any doubts and said, "Thank you for your hard work, Zheng Yi. You will come home with us in a while. Your future errands will be arranged at home." Zheng Yi and Zheng San both bowed happily and stepped aside. In this way, the young man stood in front of people alone. He frowned slightly and uttered two words, "Muju." Then, he took out another token from his arms and threw it to Jiaran. Jiaran took it and handed it to Jiyan after only one glance. Jiyan looked back and forth and was a little surprised. This token belongs to the Xintinghao mansion, and it is one of the few silver medals. If it is not an important matter or a person who can be trusted, the adoptive father will generally not send it out. What is the identity of this young man that he actually won the silver medal? But she would not ask stupidly. She just smiled and said to everyone, "This is the token of the adoptive father, and this little brother is the manpower of the adoptive father." Only then did everyone know that the young man named Muju came from the Ho mansion. The young man hesitated for a moment about the statement that it came from the Marquis mansion, but finally nodded. Jiaran smiled and said, "Muju, the character Mu means mature crops, which means beauty and harmony, and the character Ju means the name of jade, which is elegant and pure. What a good name. The person who named you must be very knowledgeable and think highly of you." A hint of sadness flashed in the young man's eyes. He lowered his head slightly and did not respond. Jiyan thought that his righteous father was still fighting abroad, so he hurriedly greeted him, "Brother Mu, my adoptive father is not in the Marquis mansion, and it is estimated that he will not be back for another month. If you don't mind it, why don't you come with us back to Sujintan? My adoptive father also has a yard in Sujintan, so you can live there first." The young man nodded, kicked the two people on the ground, and said, "This is the room and board fee." Everyone was stunned for a moment, then started laughing. What an interesting young man. Grn originally wanted to send someone to look around to see if he could find the person who had tipped off the news. Unexpectedly, reinforcements came from the sky and helped a lot. He thanked Muju with his hands and asked people to gather the clerk and the steward. Zheng Sanjiang got a bucket of cold water and poured it on. The two of them woke up on the spot. As soon as they opened their eyes, they saw that they were surrounded by so many people staring at them, and their faces turned pale with fear. Zheng Sanjiang kicked each of them. Their mouths were full of blood and 2 or 3 teeth fell out. Then he held a dagger across the man's neck and asked, "Tell me, what are you plotting?" The guy was young, so he cried out of fright on the spot, sobbing and begging for mercy, "Oh, oh, I was wrong, I don't dare to do it anymore, please forgive me. I'm the guy next door. This man gave me money and asked me to look after these 2 shops. If someone comes, I'll report the news." As he spoke, he went to talk to the steward again, "Speak quickly, don't blame me, I just took the 2 taels of silver, and I will give it back to you. Wu, I have an 80-year-old mother at home, please don't harm me." But the steward was either too courageous or afraid to tell the truth, so he refused to say anything. Grn asked with a sneer, "Isn't this person giving you money to just keep an eye on these 2 shops? If I'm not wrong, he wants you to monitor whether Princess Kangal comes to visit. You just heard the word good news outside the door, and you guessed that the princess was disguised as a servant, so you ran to report the news." The boy was exposed to the lie and shrank his neck in fright. He wanted to say something else, but Grn was impatient to listen. He directly ordered Zheng Sanjiang, "This manager must be from the Wu family, or someone related to the Wu family. Don't let them commit suicide, tie them up and take them back, and interrogate them slowly." Zheng Sanjiang nodded, and packed the person in 3 strokes. Not only did he remove his chin, but he also put something in his mouth. Jiyan looked at the sky and was about to speak when the shops in front of him were already being slapped. Several guards immediately surrounded him, and after a while, they led Li Zhensheng and Li Laoer in. Li Zhensheng and Li Laoer were also startled when they saw what the courtyard looked like. Originally, they heard that the boys at home were coming to check out the shop, so they came here to join in the fun. But now the courtyard was full of people, and there were still blood stains, so it was obvious that something had happened. After hearing the whole story, Li Laoer's expression changed and he said, "Brother, take the children back to Sujintan first. I'm going to adjust my previous arrangements and start as soon as possible. If the Wu family knew that things here had failed, they would definitely destroy the evidence and silence them." With that said, he left in a hurry. Grn was worried and ordered Zheng Sanjiang to follow him to ensure his father's safety and to help him. Without further delay, everyone found a carriage and quickly went home. On the way back to Jia's house, Jiasu sent the treasures away, but Jiasu couldn't bear to let his cousin suffer the punishment, so he also got out of the car with her. Not to mention, everyone in the Li family went to the city and returned with a full load. Just say that in the courtyard of the Wu family, Mr. Wu waited and saw no one coming back to report the news, and he felt that something was wrong. He smashed a tea set and kept walking around the room with his hands behind his back. Unable to bear it anymore, he sent someone to inquire at the back door. As a result, the chief attendant guarding the back door came back to report in person. "Master, our manpower has never returned." Mr. Wu felt as if he was fried and anxious, so he asked, "Are you sure no one is coming back?" Are there no people selling firewood or charcoal outside the door? Chang Sui lowered his head and whispered, indeed not. Mr. Wu's face turned even more ugly, and there was even a bit of fear in his eyes. End of this chapter.